this really shouldn't be a topic that I have to talk about, but Elon Musk's new Twitter that seems to be mainly dominated by conservatives seems to be bringing up a lot of high level discussions. I'm being sarcastic, by the way. They're talking about maybe the age of consent is a little too high. Which, oh boy, I thought that was a libertarian thing, but I guess Republicans are taking more shit from libertarians every day. I find this especially ironic, considering conservatives are always the ones to go like, "Oh, trans people are groomers," because they want kids to know that trans people exist, and that's grooming because people might be like, hey, wait a second, I'm trans. I may be trans. They might start thinking things. We don't want them to start thinking things. That's why we keep on fucking trying to defund the public education system. Now, to be fair, I know why they do it. It's projection. Now, I know you guys are gonna snipe in and say, well, that's a bit unfair to say that right wingers are glorifying pedophilia or suggesting that it's somewhat okay. Well, let me just tell you right now that they are. Here's some clips in pictures.
I think that the whole premise is wrong. I think that the age of consent should be lower and it should be more of like an age of marriage thing. And I think we should highly discourage sex outside of wedlock altogether.
It is not. In fact, ever since the beginning of time, teenage girls have been getting pregnant. It used to be more common. The peak, ever since they started keeping records of these things, which they only started doing recently, like in the 20th century, but ever since they started keeping records, in 1957 was the peak for teenage pregnancy. 1957. Not 2009,
well, back
not
then,
today.
All of them were supposed to have kids. Like, that's when you had kids.
That's my point, okay? So to all of a sudden act like this phenomenon of girls getting pregnant at a young age that we consider young, 16 or 17, to act like it's a new thing is ridiculous. It's always been that way. Even biologically, and this is me just stating, right now I'm going to start by just stating facts. So fact number one, it's not a new phenomenon. Fact number two, in fact, it's a phenomenon that was more common earlier in history, and for, the first 6,000 to 10,000 years of human existence, it was a normal thing. Fact three, girls between the ages of like 17 and 24 is when they're technically most fertile.
Yeah.
Okay? That's biological. That's a fact, all right? I'm just stating facts. That's all I'm doing. But what happened recently, and this is the fourth fact, recently in the last 30 years or so, we decided that that's way too young to start a family.
Why?
And because now
divorce rates would probably go up, and once you're that young, you can't really make sure that you know.
No, girls are no.
Girls were getting married early, and marriages were lasting longer. You very rarely hear about like these relationships that go to their your diamond anniversary, your 50th anniversary, and all this. That's a dying breed of people out there.
Yeah, and those were all people that got married very young. That's why
they're still alive.
Yeah, that's why you can have someone in their 70s who's celebrating their 55th wedding anniversary because they got married when they were teenagers. So what I'm saying is that the problem is not per se teenage pregnancy, it's unwed pregnancy. That's the problem in society. It's only problematic when you are not married and you don't have the man there to help you take care of the kids because he's a coward. And the reason why we have that now are for two reasons. Because we have in current society, we live in the age of extended adolescence.
Nico, a person infamous for trying to frame trans people as inherently groomers, posted this. Yeah, that's not concerning at all. We have people on Twitter trying to say that, oh, actually, fantasizing about 16-year-old girls is actually perfectly normal. No, you fucking sick fuck. And I'll go over later how the whole biological argument doesn't fucking work either. This pretty much revolves around the same thing, but yeah, still disgusting to see. And a whole interesting discussion under this Dextero post. No. Looks like someone needs their hard drives checked. Ooh, the age gap isn't that big. Motherfucker, the age gap is half a decade apart. And of course, people defending the legality of it, and I'll address why that's not a good argument later. And of course, the worst one of them all. This little number I found. Age of consent enthusiasts. Good to know that Elon Musk's free haven for free speech pretty much allows you to do whatever you want, including endorse pedophilia. Now, before someone comes in with the good old, oh, it actually counts as ephebophilia, and although that definition does have some use, I think overall that the word pedophile still applies since, that's the popular usage of the word, anyone under the age of 18. I personally think the distinction doesn't matter because you're still taking advantage of someone that's extremely vulnerable. Now, I shouldn't have to make a video arguing against blatant pedophilia, but let's just do it anyways because it's somewhat of an interesting conversation to have. And apparently, according to Twitter, it's one that we actually need to have. Arguably, the most important one is the power dynamics that are at play. An adult has a lot more legal power, they have a lot more financial power over those that are under the age of 18. Combining that with more life experience, you have a situation where someone could emotionally manipulate someone with far less emotional experience and far less ability to get out of a certain situation. Unfair power dynamics is one of the reasons why things like zoophilia are also bad. I kind of made a video like that, but it's also kind of bad. An adult and a teenager do not have the same level of authority or power in their own situation. And let's just say, for the sake of the argument, that teenagers and adults had the same amount of power and influence and authority, legally speaking, I still even think then that would be morally wrong. And in other countries where the age of consent is lower than 18, is like morally repugnant. This is from the University of Rochester Medical Center. And it says plainly put, doesn't matter how smart teens are or how well they score in the act or act, good judgment is not something they can excel in. The rational part of a teen's brain isn't fully developed and won't be until the age of 25 or so. In fact, recent research has found that adult and teen brains work differently. Adults think with the prefrontal cortex, the brain's rational part. This is the part of the brain that responds to situations with good judgments and an awareness of long-term consequences. Teens process information with the amygdala. This is the emotional part. In teens' brains, the connection between the emotional part of the brain and the decision-making center are still developing, and not always at the same rate. That's why teens have overwhelming emotional input. They can't explain later what they're thinking. They weren't thinking as much as they were feeling. So, no, it's not a cultural or a legal thing. It's a brain thing. I actually think up to this standard that the age of 18 might actually be too low. I could be wrong because I'm not a neuroscientist, but the reason why we have the drinking age at 21 around here is because of the brain's development. That is kind of like this somewhat safest time to do it, and also while still being somewhat early, so I don't see why 21 can't be the one. Yet again, I'm not a neuroscientist. Maybe 18 is actually, good enough. But I personally think it's better to have a line in the sand at that time anyways. Because, brain development and all that stuff. And before someone tries to bring this as a gotcha, there's a whole hotbed of evidence for why transitioning as a teenager is a good thing. Because, it prevents the risk of suicide at certain age. When you're under the age of 18, you're only taking puberty blockers, something which is reversible. And doing something like transitioning that has been proven to better your life if you need it is not as bad or even on the same or even at all on the same level as being in a sexually abusive relationship. So now the question remains, why do right-wingers seem to talk about this age of consent thing and how it should be lowered to some extent? Why are conservatives known for loving abuses of power, trying to endorse a position where they could abuse that power? Honestly, I don't know. It's a mystery, and I'm just gonna have to end the video there and say this is gonna be one of those great unsolved mysteries I just don't have an answer for. Well, until next time, I'll see you. I've been Deviant Crow, and I'm gonna go bleach my eyes out.